Hello, everybody. It's Friday morning on wherever you're listening to this, probably on LinkedIn, because that seems to be the majority of the audience on a Friday morning. And if you're catching up with it at a later stage on the podcast, hello, wherever you are. Welcome to another Better Way of Life. And today, Marianne's going to be very excited about this one, aren't you, Marianne? Because we're talking your favorite subjects in the world, which is little pink sparkles. I mean, training.
Oh, I thought you were going to say aims and objectives. That's me. I am fun at parties, really, but yeah, all things training, all things education.
Love all things training. Marianne could basically chew your ear off about training all day long. If
anything can be brought round to education, though, really is what it comes to. And I know I sound like a bore with it, but until I get people on board with it, then I won't stop banging on about it, because it really
very true. It is very, very true. Everything can be brought around to education. The world would be a better place if we only just opened our minds and let ourselves be educated. And so many people close their minds off to education at a certain age as well, don't they? You know, it used to be the thing that once upon a time you could go out and you do your degree or whatever, and then you go into the world of work and with your degree, and then you do your job, and you didn't need to learn anything more from that point onwards. And some people still believe that's the case, but it's not true, is it? You know, because and here's the other thing as well. I've got grey hairs, and that might be years of having children or experience, but you know, we have grey matter as well, and if we don't feed it, it tends to die. So you know, you do wonder why some people give up on it so easily. Anyway, we have an amazing guest to come in and talk to us about training today. He's trained just about everywhere. Places like Google and, you know, all of these tech companies. Well, we'll get him in and find out what he knows. And we might even get some secrets from him. Please welcome Jordan Taylor. Jordan.
Hey, good morning. Well, good afternoon to you.
Yeah. Jordan, where are you coming from exactly in the good old States?
I am on the corner of the 101 and Guadalupe in Mesa, Arizona.
Wow.
I lived in Idaho.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Not too far. Not too far.
How
long did you live there?
I was only there 6 months, and then just before lockdown, I went back. So I was only 18, so it was only a few years ago, obviously. But yeah, I went back just before lockdown, and we went back to Idaho, and then we went to Vegas for Christmas, and then we traveled around a bit. But one of my favorite places was Zion National Park.
I've not been there.
Oh, it's amazing. And Yellowstone, obviously.
Well, Vegas I've been to a number of times, and I do love Vegas. I've never been there during the holidays, though.
There you go. There you go. When I was younger, there was a great song by a band called Fat and Frantic. I have to bring everything round to music, Jordan. Called "I Was a Teenage Werewolf" from Dirtville, Arizona. And it went, "I was a teenage werewolf from Dirtville, Arizona," and then he goes, "But I'm all right." No, and it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So, for all of you hardcore music fans out there, you can go and look that one up on the old Spotify after this. So, Jordan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I have been in corporate L&D, kind of in an official capacity for about, I guess, close to 13 years now, and started with a company called GoDaddy, and they do websites and domains for small businesses. Spent close to 11 years there. Was it that long? Not starting in training. Like, yeah. I heard you talking about gray hairs. I'm getting them as well, and I think it's definitely the kids. But yeah, I was kind of moved up. I spent a lot of time in GoDaddy launching new offices. So launching an office in, or I guess, Sofia, Bulgaria, where ultimately I met my wife and spent some time there, which is where I was when we were starting to discuss this on paternity leave in September. But glad we could finally get it going. Then I went to a company called Typeform. Actually, no, there was another jump at Carvana. Is Carvana known in the UK at all?
Yes, I
a
do
little bit.
recognize that name. Yeah.
Okay. So they are kind of tech company focused for selling used cars, and I was in their logistics training department, which was very, very interesting. Teaching, truck drivers how to load 9-car haulers and field technicians. They've got these giant parking lots essentially for 10,000 plus cars that are being refurbished. And so there's a lot of training that goes along with how to move the cars properly, how to store the cars, how to clean the cars, how to gas the cars up, all sorts of stuff. So it was very different from the more call center centric training that I was doing in GoDaddy. Then I went to a very, very small startup called Typeform, and they do forms like SurveyMonkey, similar to SurveyMonkey, Microsoft Forms. And that was a lot of fun because it was just going from a 14,000, 15,000 workforce to a 250 workforce. Is a very, very different experience.
Yeah.
And now I've been at a company called Vera Mobility, which again is just a different leap. It's a lot of government contract work, but they do smart mobility. And so I think one of the products that I like the most, that I like to talk about, is there are cameras that can be installed on the side of school buses, so that if people blow past like the stop arm that's coming out in the US, there's the automations to take a photo of the license plate and send a citation and things of that nature to keep school kids safe.
Wow.
And that's mostly mostly client training that I'm working in there. So just kind of have had a myriad of different experiences with different types of training. This has been a lot of fun.
It does. It sounds it. And one of the things that immediately sort of springs to mind there is especially on the tech side of things, having come from a tech business myself, is they grow so quickly, right?
Yeah.
And how did you find that? I mean, because the last business I was in, we started off as 4. By 3.5 years later, we were 174. How do you find delivering training when the moving parts are sort of shifting so quickly?
There's so many different avenues to go down with that. I think the main thing is that, you hear a lot about Addie and Sam and like going through these robust processes, and the reality is that you in tech, at least, and even in government, I mean, you don't get the luxury of moving that slowly most of the time, nor do you get the buy-in from your stakeholders or your subject matter experts to provide feedback quickly enough to be able to go through those cycles fully. And so you have to adapt. You have to learn how to work faster. You have to learn how to set clearer deadlines with your stakeholders on the front end, and talk through some of the ramifications if they don't meet their deadlines. But also you need to figure it out if they don't, because at the end of the day, you're still going to be the throat to choke, right?
Yep. Marianne, the opportunity to go and train in a place like GoDaddy with all of those people, what was going through your head listening to that? You're on mute, by the way.
There was an aeroplane coming over. That was why. The weather's actually nice.
Well, that's rare from Heathrow these days. Just putting it out there.
So do you train on the So I tend to do, well, in all honesty, no, I do some training on actual subject, actual subjects. I mean, Graham and I did the other week, I was saying to him, I was looking at jobs. So I was looking at jobs, L&D manager, training manager, and I was, because I used to be a teacher, so I worked in the social care sector, and then I trained, did my teaching qualification, and then I worked in training, and I've worked in schools, colleges, all sorts really, and then fundamentally ended up doing what I enjoy, which is training other people to train. I love doing that. And then when I finished teaching, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't do anything. And the number of teachers that actually think they're not going to be able to do anything is incredible, because actually the skills you've got are vast, really. But a lot of employers won't look to see that either. They won't look. They'll be like, have you done this? And you think, no, I haven't done that, but I've actually done a whole lot more than that. But you need to open your mind to seeing how my skill set can be, can be used. But what I was seeing was that a lot of training managers and L&D, and there's another story around that one, don't have any training experience.
Yep.
Or qualifications, which kind of baffles me slightly.
Yeah.
And then the other day we'd heard that apparently it was that somebody was very good at entertaining people, which I know your blog, which I did want to talk about. I get that, but there is a way lot more to it than that.
Oh, yeah.
I actually deliver a qualification, or I can train people on how to. And Graham's probably been shocked since working with me just how many people literally are not interested. They're like, I don't need to, I don't want to, I don't have to. So they don't. They just say, I'm okay doing what I do. So for me, it would be the times when I have gone in and done in-house with companies. I quite like doing in-house because I love getting to know the company that I'm working with. I love getting to know what their product is, what their clients are, what the values of the company. So I've just written about a company that I've been out to, and I spent a long time working out what their product was. They're very high end, and it's great. They're investing in that's tech or cameras. So they're now training their tech people so that they can train the users. Because essentially it's like having a Ferrari or an iPhone or any phone and not actually being able to use it properly. What's the point? But the person that shows you how to do that has to be more than just knowing their stuff, but they have to be more than just nice.
Yeah.
And your blog, I think, showed perfectly how when you are a trainer, a good one, it is about entertaining people, but there's a whole lot more to it within that entertainment even.
100%. And I think you're probably referring to the one about Penn and Teller. That yeah. I think that there is some engagement techniques from an entertainment perspective that you can pull in.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time in my youth in entertainment, and I was a singer, songwriter, musician. In my late 20s, I started doing some magician type things, which is something that I'd always been interested in. And so I try and bring some of that in, but it's not the primary focus necessarily. It's more the attention grabber. And then we move into the deeper content, and you have the discussions, and you have the activities with the meaningful debriefs. I think that, yes, 100%. There's definitely value to that. I think, to your point, a lot of times in corporate, what happens is that the best of whatever team gets promoted to a trainer position, and they forget about the fact that, like, this person is developing everybody else. How are we going to develop this person to be able to improve their skills and make sure that they're ready for their role? And a lot of companies don't have budgets that are easily accessible or geared toward anything but some sort of college degree. Like tuition reimbursement is great, but there's also certifications that you can go through. There's, different programs that you can go through that will level your skills up significantly and much more quickly than a degree. And to the best of my knowledge, I've not seen an L&D degree. So then you would be getting a teacher's certificate.
That's interesting, because I think I've had these conversations with somebody else who's in the States actually, that had seen what I do, that said that sort of thing that I do didn't seem to be very rife over there. So that the course I deliver I'd like it to be longer, but it's kind of been made shorter by lots of other companies coming on board. So 3 days, and in that 3 days, I will equip people to have that knowledge and skills, and I do a lot of the psychology behind it, because as you said, a lot of people do get either thrown into, which I don't think you should be doing it if you don't want to, certainly not. Because you were saying about the lesson planning, and I think that's one of what I tend to find is that I get people that have been training for quite a long time, quite often, and I say that's fine. What they find is that when they actually learn how to build that, all the intricacies, they go, oh my goodness. And I said, yeah, you've been doing a great job, but if it all goes wrong, how are you going to fix it? If you've just been literally every session going, oh, thank God that went okay, actually you should be not worried about that. A bit like as an entertainer or a magician, that you're actually saying it's okay. I've had my laptop slip off the lectern and smash, and I'm like, oh, okay. I've got on the phone to my friend who was coming to watch, and you just almost thrive on those moments because it makes it all a little bit more interesting. But I do find then that you can see the difference with people once they've learned how to build it.
Yes.
That if you don't have a session plan, and I am obsessed with aims and objectives, and largely when I ask people about them, they don't know. They don't know the difference.
They don't know what they are.
Don't know what they are. They don't know how to use them, and I'm like, my goodness.
And I would add to that they don't know how to prepare. Generally speaking, if you're coming into a training position, you wing it. Oftentimes, like you build a PowerPoint deck, maybe, or somebody builds it for you, but you don't know how to prepare to go deliver that content. And so it's usually the third, fourth, or fifth time that you're delivering something that you start to feel comfortable, because you use those first opportunities to be your preparation. And I don't think that that's right either. I think that time needs to be built in. And oftentimes, going back to what Graham said, things move so quickly in those tech companies that it's not even a thought that they're like, oh, you know how to do the job. Why wouldn't you know how to explain it to people?
And not understanding, not understanding at all that, I do the teaching and learning cycle. I do about cold learning, experiential learning, and that, when you go through the whole of that, to be able to see that it's not about doing it the same every time. I go to different places. I've been to a prison to deliver training. That's fundamentally different than it is. That's training prison officers. I have worked with prisoners, but than when I go to an office or when I go to somewhere else, it's still the same thing I'm delivering, but I have to then think, what happened last time? Oh yeah, well, that was a different place. That was different people. The culture was different there. Then I've got to think, actually, I want to try and change the culture there. Because I'd love to talk to you about that, because there's a lot in the world about culture change. And I personally think that there's lots of stuff about culture change and how are we going to do it. But I think it has to start with training, not actually training people on culture change, but if that thread is there, you can change cultures.
Are you talking about, because I have thoughts that have been brewing for the past several months about company culture and training, or are you talking about broader global culture?
Well, I mean,
it starts with company culture. I think
probably company culture. I mean, I know for me, I'm quite up on inclusivity, and so it's not an add-on for me. It's just, I've got ADHD, and I now get why stuff never worked for me, but probably company culture.
I 100% agree that training plays a huge role in building and maintaining a successful company culture that aligns with the company values. That on day one of onboarding, and number one, there's a lot of companies that don't have onboarding, period. So you go there and they're like, here's a list of people that you should go have meetings with to get familiar with the company, and a handful of documents that you should read. Like, go figure it out. Like, they don't teach you anything about the internal systems, and that's mind-boggling to me. But I think that in and of itself is going to shape the culture of the company. And if you're not training the values and then reinforcing them throughout your annual review cycles, reinforcing them throughout your town halls, talking about the values and tying back the goals or the big rocks and little gems, or whatever you want to call them, your Q4 targets, I don't care. If you're not tying your goals back to the values and how the company at the highest level is living those values through setting these goals and achieving them, then how can you expect anybody else to? And so there's multiple levels of training that need to be happening there. And some of it obviously is going to teeter into like internal communications. But I think that starting with the onboarding, going through the values, and then, continuing some threads. One of the things that I did that at Typeform, which was particularly, I don't know, kind of cheeky, I guess, was we wanted to create more of a structured approach, not a script by any means, but just like here's kind of the flow of the conversation that should happen in chat support. And so what I did was I took the different values of the company and said, this is the value that the conversation starts with. And for the life of me, I can't remember the company values off the top of my head, but then this is the value that it moves into. And so the conversation flow, the chat flow, was built off of the different steps of the company culture. And you started to see some of the culture start to bleed in a little bit more. And they were new to company values at that point. I think had been established within the past year. But it's things like that really drive the value, drive the culture. And then there's other pieces of it that's just like, I've worked at companies where people don't respond to emails. I've worked at companies where inter-office communicators, Teams, Slack, Zoom, whatever it is, like people don't respond in those. Or they send long voice messages, or they send long videos instead of typing things out. Like, these are the things that you want to prepare people for, because if you go to a company and you've never really worked with Teams or Slack, and then all of a sudden you've got people sending you a 9-minute voice memo instead of just a quick message or scheduling a meeting, because that was ultimately what it was intended to do, was to avoid having a meeting, which is great. And it's asynchronous, and it was a global company. And so those are great things, but setting that expectation up front with employees, so they're not like, what the heck is this guy doing or this gal doing? And just saying, like, this is how we communicate. And this is why, more importantly, because we want to keep people out of meetings as much as possible. And we want you to be able to listen and respond to these things, these messages in your own time, because we also have a work anywhere mentality, and we have a take care of your business and get your job done on your time, and you're fine. But if you don't set that expectation, people are just like, this is really weird. I don't know. I'm not comfortable sending this voice message, or whatever the case may be.
I think the really interesting thing there, listening to that part of the conversation, was that the two elements tie together. Where we started with entertainers are doing training rather than people that are entertaining, but they can train as well, is that the difference there is that great trainers are also great learners. And if you're just entertaining, you probably got too much of an ego to learn, right? Let's be honest about this,
yeah.
Right? And it comes back to this whole idea of, and we've talked to people about that in some fairly senior positions in terms of training, and they've said, oh, but all of our trainers get great feedback. It's easy to get great feedback if you're a great entertainer, because you can manipulate people to go, did you enjoy that? Yes, I did. Thank you very much. Tell me that you enjoyed it. Put it down there at the time.
Yep.
Did it have the desired effect? Probably not.
Yeah, but also if you've not set those objectives out, the number of people I speak to on training who've been, you know, training for a long time, and I mention those words, and I say I'm horrified. I'm not actually. I'm not surprised, but it still makes me sort of go, if only people could fully understand that. Because also when I've got managers I'm speaking to, the issue I tend to face is that I've got people that I'm approaching about this that they don't have any training background either, or L&D. So I'm trying to preach to somebody that doesn't get it at all, that just sees it as an added extra. And actually, when you look at what I actually charge, and what I say what I charge, because you can do it even far cheaper if you just want to tick a box. If you look at my newsletter, then you'd see that. But that it's not expensive. It's literally not expensive when you consider the number of people. I don't do anything magical. I don't do anything other than the fact that I know how to plan a session. I know I've got a degree in psychology, so I understand how to work with people. And I know the subject. So all those things mean that session is going to run well. But as you say, it comes back to the planning, because the number of people I see that they literally would just build a PowerPoint. And then I'll say to them, but did you actually set out from the beginning what it was you were going to do? Yeah, so I'm going to talk about this. And I said, it's not about talking about it. What is it you want them to know or be able to do at the end of it? And by the end of
they're
it,
probably, especially you go back to the tech side of things that we were talking about earlier, and that speed, you know, they've probably got no knowledge of how to kick back, right? Well, they've probably been given it 2 days ago. You've got to go and deliver training to this group of people two days from now.
But I will say to you, if you know how to build that training, even if someone dropped it on me, like for something tomorrow, my first question is, what is it you want them to be able to do or know? Because otherwise, all people do is they tell people everything they know about that subject. And I'm like, God, that's going to be overwhelming. So, you know, and even if someone comes to me and says, can you do some training on such and such? And my first question, and I say to people, should be, what is it you want them to be able to know or do at the end of it? I said, because, and they go, I don't know. And I said, well, I can't work with you. You go away and work out what it is. Then when you come back to me, I can then say to you, because actually, when you've got to, say Jordan, say I was doing some work for you, you've got to have a way of working out whether I've earned my money. And the way I've earned my money is by teaching the people. And one of the biggest things people forget is, I say, how are you going to measure that? And they look at me and they say, but I've told them it. I said, but you haven't taught them anything until you've assessed them. I haven't got to give them essays, have I? I said, I haven't mentioned the word essay. Did I mention the word essay? And it's because most people just say, I'll just give them a quiz at the end. Just give them a quiz at the end. And I'm like, no, that's fine. But your quiz has to be evidence to show that you've done what you said. And then the penny drops for people that this isn't just about rocking up and talking. It's more than that.
Training, it's rocking up and talking.
People do think it is, though, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
I think a lot of people think it is. You just read off a PowerPoint. No, I don't.
It's surprising how many people within the business that are not trainers, how many leaders that will offer a training, and then it is just they've got 10,000 words on a PowerPoint slide and they just read it off, and then they're like, they're trained. And you mentioned it earlier, it's not talking to the group, it's not just telling them what it is. There seems to be this common misconception that if I tell you something,
you got it,
you're going to remember it. You're going to be able to walk away and be able to do it. And that's just like, they think that's so naive.
That's e-learning, isn't it?
Yeah. Like you need to, and it's something that I've preached a million times, I feel like, in the past couple of years, is that you need to touch on the same topic multiple times in multiple different ways. Whether it's first you can tell them, then you can show them, then you can do some hands-on, and then you can debrief it. Like that's 4 or 5 different touches with the same information. That's how it's going to stick. Most people lose 60% of what you told them within 6 hours of your training. So
didn't mean, and I think that's that bit about, you know, when I go into a company, when I was training these tech guys, I had to kind of pitch what I was doing in a non-educational type way. In fact, I redid my whole PowerPoint, of which now I'm using it, because although only part of their job was training. So they're tech people. And so I'm then having to sell the idea and actually now I'm going to go back out with that company to be able to look at how they can make their assessments better. And this is where I think a lot of companies just sort of see training as over there somewhere. And I said, but actually, particularly if you're training your customers, as in they're training operators, essentially the money saving happens in the fact you haven't got to keep going out to go and support those customers. But also, if you're selling a high-end product, surely you should be investing high-end, or you should be investing something in there. And actually, one of the manager I was working with said the other thing is that we have to make sure that the companies we deal with, so football clubs or cricket clubs, that they understand that they have to invest the time. They have to give their operators the time. So it's not just a quick 10-minute, I'll show you it. It's going to be 2 or 3 hours long. And you have to invest that in to be able to use our system effectively.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I need to ask Jordan, do you think we need to change the narrative? Because I do quite a lot of podcasts with culture change leaders and experts. And one of the things that comes up a lot and has come up a lot over the last couple of years is the whole narrative about accidental management or accidental managers. People find themselves becoming a manager, etc. But do you think we need to kind of just shift it slightly towards more like accidental trainers? Because effectively that's what we've got. And the difference is as well is that a lot of people will look at management and go, well, that's not me. Right. I'm not, that doesn't really relate to me, because I'm the owner of the company, or I'm down there somewhere. I'm not, I have a manager. That doesn't relate to me. But when it comes to training, everybody trains, right? In a business, to some extent, right?
And does it as a side hustle.
You hear what I'm saying?
I do. It's a really good question. I think that yes, everybody passes on knowledge in some way, shape, or form, from father to child, mother to child, from peers at work, from leader to direct report. There's always knowledge being shared and passed on. I don't know that I would categorize it as training off as often as I would categorize those types of knowledge transfers as development. And from an accidental trainer standpoint, I think that somewhere in the high 90s percentile of trainers got into this position accidentally. They weren't sitting on their parents' lap when they were kids saying, I'm going to be a corporate trainer when I grow up. That. Oh, you're back on mute. There was another plane out of Heathrow.
It was a dog this time. Over here, in some sectors, you have to have a training qualification. You have to have it. And it's not the one that I teach is that you have to have it. So in a lot of technical ones, health and safety, you have to, but a lot
similar
you
to
don't.
Australia, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have that over there? If you don't, I'm more than welcome to start offering it over there.
We don't. We don't have those types of qualifications that you need. But I do have a trainer that reports to me in Australia, and she just had to renew her level 4, I think, or something like that.
They should. I'm shocked because it is something that I've wondered in other countries, because it's like a 3-day like whistle stop tour effectively, and I'm just really shocked that other countries don't have it, because it's really like you were saying, the next level sort of a degree, and I'm like, wow, there's I mean there's
That's
another
a massive
level up.
jump, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean there's what I do, then there's another level and another one, and I built another one in between as well because I could see there was a gap. But that really shocks me.
Yeah.
They need
it's the Wild West over here.
Yes. Well, yes.
You buy a Wonka bar, you open it up, you may have the training ticket, you might not.
Yes, exactly right.
We need to talk, Jordan. We need to take the USA.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. It's a big place.
It does need to go up a level. It does need to go up a level. What we're kind of running out of time today, and thank you for your time. Maybe we'll come back and continue this conversation another time as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's the biggest shift you've seen in terms of attitude towards training, maybe in the last 5 years over there?
I think that I am definitely starting to see a shift towards leaders seeing true value in training. I think that is starting to blossom. I still think that it's in its infancy, where the amount of time, the amount of resources, all of the things, like it's not enough to be able to come up with quality solutions oftentimes. But the value is there, and I do see a bit of a shift where leaders are thinking about training as a step in change management initiatives, and rolling out a new system. Like they're thinking about including training in that conversation early on. If we're shifting priorities, they're thinking about how do we leverage training to help us through this. And earlier and more often would be better, but I do see that shift starting to take place. And then I also see a lot of people obviously exploring AI and how AI can help speed up the process. And but even just the amount of companies that are adopting proper LMSs to manage training. And a lot of times when I was at Typeform, for instance, we didn't have an LMS. It was try and figure it out with Google Classroom, or how can we track it through using eating your own dog food was a big thing when I was working there. And so it was like, how can you use Typeform to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish? And it's a very versatile tool. It didn't have the same usability for an LMS from an LMS standpoint.
There you go. For anyone that's listening that isn't used to the lingo of training, that's a learning management system. Just in case, we have to be careful with acronyms, because like in some scenarios, it means completely different thing. So
yeah,
I don't know what another thing that LMS stands for, but just in case it does, you
did well though. I don't think you used any other lingo, but that's a true trainer, is somebody that knows. You can't keep using.
Yeah, when I start talking about training, then the acronyms go flying.
The acronyms start coming out.
We'd love to have you on again though, and talk about more things training.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Marianne, I do think you should sort of try and head over to the States and help Jordan take over the States in terms of training development. Right. It sounds like the opportunities may be shifting that way. Maybe people might start to see the light and realize that, at very least, get the people at the top of the tree trained, if not everybody. It has to start somewhere, doesn't it? Jordan, thank you so much for coming on and talking today. If people want to connect with you, you're on LinkedIn. Is there other places where people can connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I run a blog called the Corporate Training Companion, so corporatetrainingcompanion.com, and I usually post about once every 2 weeks. If my 1-year-old isn't driving me too crazy in the evenings, so kind of doing it off the side of my desk. But
It's a nice read as well.
oh, thank you very much. Very kind. Very kind.
I get
But
bored
yeah.
easily, so I get bored easily, so that's a good tick.
And can we just say that Jordan actually writes that? It's not, Chat GPT doesn't write it for him.
No.
You know,
I will say that in all transparency, I do use Chat GPT to help me come up with ideas of things to write and kind of do some of the research. And I use some AI tools to create some of the photos. So I think I want to get away from the photos that I use using AI, and I'm not loving what they're outputting. But I think it's also important to just call out if you're using AI, like call it out. Yeah.
I think do you know what we talk to people about AI, and we even in our little community, I show people how to use various bits of AI. I think it's great, but you need to be creative with it. You need to be in charge of it rather than it in charge of you. And if you're just being lazy with it, it's like any tool out there. In lazy hands, it looks lazy. You know, in creative hands, it can be really, really very, very valuable. Thank you, Jordan, for coming and talking to us today. Marianne, thank you for being here as well. And thank you to you for taking the time to listen. If you've enjoyed this, please do go and share it around with your network, etc. And we will see you soon for another one of these. Until then, take care and bye for now.